for the first time in years. Got my feet across the border from a land of tears. Ain't no way I'm going back under. Got my eyes in the wild blue yonder. Will lies beyond the horizon? Let's go find out. Feeling free.
To wade into the subject of child support is to know that you are entering into the realm of a topic that is controversial and sure to encourage emotionally laden responses from all sides. To really discuss this topic takes a level of nuance that is not all too familiar in our current political climate. When I did a bit of research into the origins of child support, I expected to see some historical precedents like Jehoshaphat having to give 3 goats and a yearly stipend of cow's milk to his ex-wife Zephaniah to support their sons Zechariah and Ephraim. Yet what I found was that the child support, at least in our modern understanding, was not codified into national law until 1975. Prior to 1975, the divorce rate in the United States had been on the rise for a few decades. This rise also coincided with the rise of feminist movements and a push for greater rights for women. Around this same time, we were in the midst of a cultural shift that had us questioning and attempting to define the roles and rights of men and women as parents to children. In situations where child support is a present issue, parental roles are defined as being custodial and non-custodial. The custodial parent is the parent who assumes the role of day-to-day caretaker for children, while the non-custodial parent has less of a role in the daily life of children and is often designated to pay child support to the custodial parent to cover some of the costs involved in raising a child. Historically, the role of custodial parent has gone to mothers, while the vast majority of those paying child support have been fathers. Some of these arrangements are made informally between the two parents, but many are decided through the intervention of the courts. History has also seen the justice system having a strong bias towards mothers, who are often seen as naturally more nurturing than fathers, but that is a whole other topic. It's ideal, of course, if separating parents can remain friends and are able to work out custody and support arrangements on their own. Of course, we also don't live in a fantasy world where two people are always able to break up a relationship while remaining friendly. Sometimes when relationships break up, you get two adults being, well, adults. And sometimes you get an episode of Jerry Springer. Since Jerry Springer is no longer on the air, the courts are often left to decide on things such as custody and child support. This arrangement is not ideal, but sometimes people have kids they don't want to take care of. Sometimes people don't want to pay for shit or do shit, or likewise even acknowledge that the kids are even there. Lucky for those, their Maury show is still on the air. In one of my first jobs, I used to work with a guy named Johnny. What I remember most about him was that he was always high, smelled of weed, and once called off of work from the parking lot. What I also remember is how upset he got over even the notion of having to pay child support. Why should I pay child support, he told me. I buy food, diapers, give the baby's mom money for the rent and the bills. Johnny got me to thinking, if he did all these things and had the vacation hours to cover that time he called off from the parking lot, then what need was there for the courts to be involved? He was not a deadbeat dad. He was working, sort of, involved father who also just happened to like his herb. Child support is a complicated issue. It gets at just how many things can go wrong with relationships and how many ways people can be ugly to each other. Jerry Springer can't solve it all. Maury can't solve it, and the courts often fail to see the nuance that is necessary when handling sensitive family issues. When the courts are involved, it already ain't good. Yes, there are deadbeat fathers, and there are some mothers who won't pay unless they are made to. Yet there are also mothers and fathers who use child support as a form of emotional manipulation. Maybe they use child support as a way to try to get the other parent back, or they're being vindictive because of something that happened during the relationship. Then there is a matter of how courts go about making people pay child support. So if you don't pay, you might go to jail. This brings up a couple of different questions. The first one being, how the hell are you supposed to pay child support when your ass is in jail? You make like 4 cents an hour when you're in jail. There has to be a better way. At the risk of sounding like a Jerry Springer final thought, which would be inappropriate because we have only just begun to discuss this important topic, but this is an important issue. It is multi-sided and extraordinarily complicated. While it is ideal for families to work these things out for themselves, sometimes life doesn't work like that. In the absence of an answer, all I really have to say is that the word of the day when it comes to this topic is nuance. In other words, don't use a chainsaw when the problem is better suited to a scalpel.
And we're back. And we're back. It's Saturday at noon. You're sipping tea with AmberJ. You just heard from JP, the Westside Connection. AmberJ, what's up?
Not much, man. That was a great intro into this very controversial topic that we're about to get into.
AmberJ. What's up, AmberJ? Like, yo, this is crazy. But look, guys, once again, welcome back to another week of Sipping Tea with AmberJ. There is no need to recap because the JP, the Westside Connection, just brought it in for you. Yes, we are talking about child support. You mad or nah? AmberJ.
What's up?
So JP just asked a crazy question. JP said, how the hell are you supposed to pay when your ass is in jail? But you know what? We first inform and then we educate. So let's go back to what JP said about, 1975 and, that being kind of like the start of the legislative history of child support. And I kind of want to jump in and say, first and foremost, we have to give you a history lesson. And once again, I'm your girl, Lily Mae. And so I want to tell you that in 1975, what JP was referencing is the Title 4D of the Social Security Act, and it established the federal child support program. Then in 1984, the year AmberJ was born, that's when child support enforcement amendments came into play. And that was when, there were major reform and certain techniques that were required for child support to be enforced in the processes. Then you got 1988. That's when the Family Support Act was established. And that was for, basically, they enforced paternity. They enforced remedies for fathers that weren't taking care of their kids, but they also forced fathers to get paternity tests, because the reality is that there are, I don't mean any harm, not throwing shade, but there are so many women out here who are making men pay child support on kids that they know are not theirs. And my thing is, men, I don't care if you did sleep with this woman, I don't care if you slept with her unprotected, take a paternity test anyway, because just like she let you stick her raw, you don't know who else she messing with. But anyway, in 1993, you got the Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act, and that's referenced as OVRA. And that was another act that the federal government came up with to increase paternity establishment. And then in the mid-90s, I think around 1996, you had the Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act of 1996, and that's when they worked to restructure the welfare program. Now,
that was Bill Clinton, right?
Uh-huh.
Because his ass got some kids out there that he didn't pay for. I'm just saying.
You know what? He probably do. He probably do. You know the way he's feeling Aretha Franklin, we got to look for some little beige babies. But the child support enforcement program, first and foremost, guys, it's federally funded. Now, I need you to hear what I'm saying. It's federally funded. It's state administered, but it's state or county operated. So basically what that means is it's just like Medicaid. The money comes from the federal government. The state administrates the program, meaning that the state governs the program, and then each respective locality operates under its own jurisdiction. The challenge with that is that it's a cross-jurisdictional program. So a lot of people don't know that there's a possibility you could appeal your child support case all the way to the federal government. And people don't know that. But that's why MBG is here to first inform and then educate, so that you will be motivated and inspired to be an agent of change in your own home and your own community. But anyway, so AmberJ, just, jump in, because when we think about child support, we always think about what? Localities, right?
Yeah.
So tell me your experience, or because we got a lot of friends that's dealing with it. Tell me about some of your friends' experience with child support so far, and then I'll bring a little bit more education, but I kind of want to make this thing practical.
Well, from my experience, it's been a mixture. Like, I have people who come together, as JP stated in his intro, they come together and on an agreement. They don't go to the courts and say, okay, we ain't working out, but we got kids, so pay this amount every month, and it works. Then I have other people that I know that the mother didn't even bother with the father. He do him, he don't care, and she just keep it pushing. And then I got those who the relationship failed, so they did take them to court out of partially needing help and partially because you mad. And then the other is, we separated, and they just went with the formalities of going to court and splitting and all that kind of stuff. And the father do what he do in addition to the child support as well. With all those experiences, especially in my case, my mother never took my father to court for child support. And the story behind that is, my mom was like, okay, she could do bad by herself. She just never did that. And, and my father had a drinking problem. So she was tired of cussing and fussing at him, knowing he had an issue that he never resolved. So she just said, the hell with it. But for those that I know that are, doing it on manipulation purposes, I just keep it real. Like, well, you knew he won't nothing when you got with him. And then you had a baby think he was going to stay with you. Why are you going to court asking for $1 gazillion? He don't work. He's struggling. All this kind of stuff. Well, he shouldn't have done so and so to me. Well, it's a two-way street on this thing. And out of all of the experiences that I know of, that's the one that just troubles me the most, because it's ill intent behind it. Just accept your part. And if he ain't doing what he need to do, I get that you going to court. But some states got that if you got that child support on you and you don't work, your high part's going to jail. And like JP said, you getting like 4 cents, 27 cents, 35 cents an hour in jail, child support. And every time you don't pay, that's back child support, back child support, back child support, to where when you get released, you owe $1,000 of back child support, or every time you get a check of some sort in to prison, they're taking it for child support. So the guy don't even have any means of supporting himself if he don't even have no family.
So AmberJ, and for the most part, we agree on this topic, but let me play devil's advocate. So I want to go back to when you said that you knew he won't nothing when you laid down for him. I disagree, because I feel like sometimes people paint this beautiful picture of who they are. And once you get in that situation, that entrapment, you don't find out who they are until you've already made and I don't use the word mistake, until you already made that consensual decision to lay down together, whether protected or not, and boom, now you're blossoming. And now you blossom.
Can we possibly say, though, error in judgment instead of mistake?
Okay, we'll say error in judgment. And so I think it goes both ways. I think that sometimes people can paint a pretty picture. I firmly believe that.
That's true.
Now, I'm not saying that make it all right, for females or males to take an individual to court for child support just because they mad. But I do feel like sometimes we may get into situations thinking it's one thing and then find out it's something else. And by the time you find out, that child 6 years old. You feel what I'm saying? And he gone off with his wife and 12 kids. I'm just saying. But anyway, so do you feel like, and JP, I'm gonna defer to you real quick. Do you feel like the state is on the side of the mother or the father?
I would say, and I'll say this to somebody, my father, I didn't grow up with my father, but my father was court ordered to pay child support. And I've asked him about that because, I had the kind of mother who really shouldn't have been given custody of her kids, I'm going to be honest. And I asked my father sometimes because he was, he was just far more, he had a lot more sense. Why didn't you attempt to get custody of the children? And this was back in 1980. And she said at that time, you weren't going to get custody of your children as a father unless the mother was actively coming to court with the needle in her arm.
Wow.
And hide, doing all kinds of stuff. Like, the mother had to be horrible. I mean, I think as a lot of other things when it comes to the roles of men and women, it's changed a bit over the time, but there is still a perception that, children are better off with their mother. But it's not always true. So, yes, I would say that there still remains some bias towards the mother in custody situations. Yes, I would.
Okay. All right. And I mean, I agree. But while we're talking about, who we feel that the state favors, I just want to say a couple of things, and then we're gonna bring on someone, and we're going to talk about a topic that we discussed over Facebook, and we're going to kind of, bring a little bit of practical application to this thing. But you need to understand that the state's function in child support is to locate non-custodial parents, establish paternity, establish orders using state guidelines, enforce orders, review and adjust orders, and things of that nature. It's not to get you back together. It's not to be a revenge source. It's not to be the police. It's for the child. And I think that's the problem. Everybody feel like child support is a source of revenge against the parent, and it's not. Now, granted, no shade, but some female judges will use it as revenge against dad. AmberJ, what are your thoughts about that?
I'll agree to that to a certain extent because of the fact that it'll stir up a hurt, because maybe that judge can't, in that particular case or cases like that can't be non-biased, and so they'll be like, you know what, man did me wrong. When the case may be, you gonna pay my hurt and her hurt. So, I mean, that is, and then, of course, father's in the bind, especially if he's, doing what he's supposed to be doing and trying to fight that. And then that's a constant battle of back and forth until, maybe he goes all the way up to the top. But I don't know if there's a gender thing there that should be considered when it comes to child support, or what, but I partially agree with that. Especially as a woman, we women tend to be emotional, and if we can't, be non-biased or take the emotion out of it, we'll make a call based on how we feel or what will bring up out of us, and it's not, conducive to the situation.
Wow, it just, when I think about what the state's function is, and then when I think about how child support seems to be used, because listen guys, this is what the child support enforcement process looks like. You have the initiation of the case. That's when the case begins. Then you have the location piece. And that's where, you're trying to get the data. You're trying to find a non-custodial parent and his or her assets. Then you got the establishment of paternity. And so once paternity is established, that's when financial obligations are set. But, I have a problem because paternity isn't established in all situations. I just dealt with a situation a couple of months ago where a gentleman was like, well, I know I slept with her around this time and the child is here, but just like she slept with you the first night, she probably done slept with a whole lot of people the first night. You need to have a paternity test. Well, he signed the papers before he consulted with anybody. So once again, sometimes ignorance, willful ignorance, will cause you to be paying for something that you don't owe. So after establishment of paternity and all of that, then you have the collections and distribution. So that's when the funds are received and distributed, and then you have the enforcement, and that's the tools being, used to ensure payment. This is where the question that I posed on Facebook came in. And basically, when I posed the question, I was pretty much thinking about the fact that Medicaid expansion is here. January 1, it starts in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Now, with Medicaid expansion, if you are a family of one and you have an income of less than $17,000 a year, you will be able to get Medicaid between the ages of 19 and 64. With that being stated, if you have a child right now, though, you can get state-sponsored health insurance if you have a family of 4 and you make $52,000 or less. I'm sorry. Most single mothers with 3 kids do not make $52,000. That's a family of 4. Your children can get state-sponsored health insurance. So what bothers me is that I see a lot of courts mandating that men pay child support and to provide health insurance without assessing the female's income to ensure that they aren't already getting, the respective services and insurances. Because the reality is that when I look at Medicaid, and not Medicaid for grown folk, but when I look at Medicaid for children, Medicaid covers a whole hell of a lot of services that we can't even get with our paid insurances that we're paying our paychecks. And so I pose the question, why? Why is it that men, and first I said men, but then I said men or women, but why is it that the non-custodial parent has to provide health insurance when state-sponsored health insurance is out there for, certain individuals and certain families? And a lot of time, when people go and apply for services, child support income is not calculated, just like Social Security and stuff like that. So I want to bring on Ms. Katara Johnson because she definitely had an opinion about this subject. And welcome, Ms. Johnson. How are you?
I am well. How is everyone doing?
We're doing just fine, just fine. And so I know that when this topic was posed, you definitely had some input. So tell me a little bit about your background, your involvement with child support, and then talk a little bit about your opinion relative to that statement.
Sure. Okay. In my 20s, I got pregnant from a guy I was seeing since I was high school, and let's just say it didn't work out. And it's interesting that you guys were talking about this. Honestly, the issue was he took me to court. He brought the state into that. I did not. I was not even thinking about the state. He was giving me a little bit of child support here and there, whatever. That was fine. He took me to court. We got in a big argument, and I think it was partly shade, partly in his feelings, partly he's listening to a rent-a-cop say this and this and that worked in the court system. Excuse me, I'm sorry. A security guard said that this, encouraged him to like, well, take her to this, take her to that, do this, do that. Somebody encouraged was talking in his ear. He took me to court, and to be fair, I told him that my parents were retiring to the state that I am in now. They asked me to come before they knew I was pregnant. Then they asked me to come still because pregnant, first grandson, all that thing. That's how they are. And I said, given my current situation, I said yes. I let him know that ahead of time. He knew before and after I was pregnant I was leaving. Anyways, long story short, he was taking me to court pretty much to say that I can't leave the state. I got a lawyer because I don't have, I didn't do my research about the court. The lawyer was like, all right, well, okay, let's see well then we're going to get him for child support then if we're bringing all this stuff in. I said, okay, so it's interesting again, this is a different state from Virginia, everybody. So, they looked at my wages, they looked at his wages, boom, there it is. So that's the background with that. And just real quick before we get into this, and this has something to do with it, my child is a senior in high school now. And yes, every child needs health care because you don't know what is going to happen.
That's true.
Yep. So to that, I've always, I've had a lot of people encourage me and help me out, and they said at one time he was on Medicaid. So they were like, always have health insurance for him. Yes, at the state that I was living, he was supposed to provide for it, but I already had it in place. So that was that. Now, getting back to your point, and I'm taking it a little bit out of the court, and just for my experience in healthcare and everything else, any parent, custodial, non-custodial, whatever the case, father, mother, that should be a priority to make sure your child has healthcare, be it a court report or not. And I'm sure everybody can agree stuff happens, stuff still happens, So that's one thing. Now, if someone thinks that it's unfair, I would say try to understand, try to make do with your situation. Okay, if a father has to or a mother has to, and they don't see why since they're a non-custodial parent, just think about it and be like, okay, grin and bear it and be like, all right, let's compare what's my health insurance versus the mother or versus the father, and who has the better one. And perhaps and I don't know how the Commonwealth, Virginia is, perhaps go to court and say it would be more feasible if she gets the medical because of her betterment of that. Maybe introduce that. But get them on some type of health insurance, be it Medicaid, and if you have a great job and they do have some great health insurance, bring that child on. It is only going to benefit them. Now, of course, like you were saying, the courts are a little funny here and there. I will tell you the state that I am in now, I am in the state of Florida now, and when I was on Medicaid at one time, they sent it to a letter talking about, well, we can help you with child support. And I'm like, thank you. And I called and said, thank you, but, I live in a different state. He's like, oh, sorry. But if anything else, please let us know. So there is a push to, attack the non-custodial parent. Don't get me wrong. In the state of Florida, there is a push for that. Or at least that was at that time. And so you got to definitely be careful. If you bring yourself into the court system, be it my situation or a mother, just like Lily was saying, do your research because it may be more harm to good from everybody. And I know I didn't say that on your thread, but because you brought up a lot of research on that, which was great, because people do need to know that. I can honestly say do your research because it's going to be better for everybody. But my original point that I said on your thread was, get your child on grin and bear it and just get them on that health care. It's not going to always be like that,
Definitely.
And that's,
And I'm glad that you spoke to being in a different state because that's what I need people to understand. Each state is unique, and what you have to understand is what I said in the beginning. The program is federally funded and is state administered. And because each state is unique, child support enforcement operates under each state's domestic relations law. Domestic relations law. Domestic relations law. Domestic relations law. Which means generally with child support, if you're not going before a mediator, you're going to go to juvenile and domestic relations court. Okay? And so, you know, each state also has its own child support language, which is crazy to me because some states you have child, youth, and family services. I know in Virginia you have Division of Child Support Enforcement, and it's just like certain things I am a federalist on. Some things I believe that you just need to have a universal system. And child support is one of those because a lot of men, and I'm just going to throw it out there, a lot of the men that are on child support have generally been in and out of jail or in and out of prison, and they might be in different states at different times. So guess what? You're going to be bound by the law of the state that order was set in, but then there's interstate trade and commerce relative to those payments being dispersed. So it's like, who is this system really for? AmberJ, do you want to speak to that?
Well, word on the street is, child support is, pays the judge's payroll, but that's what word on the street is.
Word on the street.
So the more you crank up the child support, the more judges will pay, but, you know. And then
Now, AmberJ.
And then it has a connection to the New Deal, but that's just word on the street. I mean,
now, AmberJ, you can't possibly think that, AmberJ, you can't possibly believe that under this awesome governmental administration that we're under right now, that the government would be operating in such a deceptive function. Do you really believe that?
That's just what word on the street is. I mean, judges got to get paid somehow, some way. And, you know, every state, every locality is bankrupt or stealing or under an audit of some sort. So, you know, how are the judges getting paid? And it's, you know, I rarely hear that, you know, a decision was rendered in the right, and I don't want to say the right amount, but in a decent amount to where everybody is feasible. I'm hearing complaints like, oh my God, I can't pay that so because I work at McDonald's or something like that. But it's like every time the person goes back, and this is legit for any parent that's actually doing for their child, like I said, you know, child support and then some, it goes up higher and higher and higher, even though they're showing they got the receipts, it goes higher, higher, higher. So it's like, okay, so who's really benefiting? Yes, it's for the child, but you see this man or woman doing what they're supposed to do, in addition to, you know, the extracurricular activities, you know, those type of things, and whatever else is going on, but you keep cranking it up.
That's true.
To where he, you know, he or she can't even pay rent.
That's
and if
true.
they ain't got no place to stay, then you go right on back to court. Well, he or she, they ain't got no place. Well, I mean, he paying over $1,000 in child support. And then some. I mean, how else? It's like it's kind of like you got to pick your battles. You want the child support, but the person got to have a place to stay. So when they get the child, you know, for visitation purposes, you know, there has to be a balance of some sort. But like I said, from my experiences, it's retaliation for something. As soon as the female and this again, my experience. So you know, don't say you know, AmberJ said no. This is from what the people I know. As soon as they get into an argument about something, or she need extra money, whatever the case may be, as soon as that happens, I'm taking him to court. Because he don't want to pay me. So and so and so and so.
But it's not for you.
Right.
And I'm like, sorry.
I'm like, it's just, you know, it's about balance. And I'm like, well, you know, and because I just keep it real with the people I know. I'm like, well, is he doing this? Well, yeah, but he ain't had to be telling me that. Come on now. At the end of the day, it's about the child, not about you and your feelings. Get out of your feelings and think about this child that y'all got. Especially if he's doing. You know what I mean? And it's like every time you turn around, you get an argument, you don't like what he said, or the case may be, you go into court for $100 more at it. Makes no sense. But like I said, we're on the street. It pays for the judges, so that's what the word is.
I just say get your life. Because the reality is this. I can't understand why in 2018. Well, I understand it. Forget it. The New Deal. I get it. because everybody wants free money. Everybody wants a check. Nobody wants to work. Those of us like AmberJ and myself who have decided that we want to make a better life for ourselves before we have kids, we're getting penalized because there are some people that want to have 20, 30, 40 kids and live off the state for the rest of their life because it's glamorous. You have BMWs when you're paying $2 rent. Hell, if I was paying $2 rent and still working the job that I work, I would have a Maserati.
Sure. You tell it. I wish my rent was $2.
You feel what I'm saying? If I wanted to live in the projects and worry about walking outside getting shot up all the time, I could live lavish too. And I think we talked about this the other day, the meme that was out there on Facebook. How you gonna be broadcasting you vacationing when your rent ain't but $2?
Mm-hmm.
Broadcast your vacation when you working 80 hours in 1 week and you still getting taxed $1,000 or $2,000 a month. Then broadcast your vacation.
Mm-hmm.
But don't broadcast that you're using your child support money or your TANF to go on vacation or to get your nails done. And you know, the saddest thing is the child tax credit. And I don't agree with that man in office, but I will say this. I am a little happy that some of those tax credits are being gypped. Because, I'm sorry, working single parents need that tax credit. Parents that's laying around on their butt all day collecting child support and all of that, they don't need that tax credit. Because all they do is buy bundles, lemons, and then get the lemon repoed by June.
I would say single parents or those that are married with like blended families.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. Yes. I agree, Amber.
And those, you know, like if they adopted, I think they all of that, they should get some type of credit. Because sometimes blended families, you're taking on stepchildren and things like that. So not just single, but just in any capacity like that, some type of tax credit. But if you just,
definitely,
like you said, just collecting, just to be collecting, and you purposely haven't churned because you can get all these tax credits, which I don't know how a woman could just have all these churn, because no. But if you're just sitting just to be sitting and collecting, like you said, then no. Where's the tax break? You're not doing it. You're just collecting. But if you're working hard, especially if it was two parents or something happened to one of the parents, something like that, then yeah. But common sense ain't common.
And it's not.
If I may.
Please interject, because we women got it going on. And guys, once again, you listening to Sipping Tea with MBG on Saturday at 12 noon. And JP, the Westside Connection, get ready to come with some fire.
So if I may, I think the whole discussion points again to what I pointed out as the word of the day, which is nuance. Now, I personally don't find it all that helpful to myself to sort of paint people with this, these wide brushes, as this is the person who does this, this is the person who does that. It does take nuance when we're talking about how we look at these things from the aspect of how a government funds it and who we should be providing tax credits or earned income credits for and who we should not. Now, a lot of that was addressed in, as Lily Mae pointed out, the 1996, what did you call it, the Bill Clinton trying to avoid paying for his illegitimate children bill. What was it again?
The Family Opportunity Act.
That one, exactly. And a lot of those kind of structural changes were addressed in that, addressing sort of what we would call the cycle of dependence on governmental funding, TANF and all that. Now, how well it addressed that, is anybody's opinion. But I wanted to go back to in the role of the state and even the motivation of the state. The motivation of the government is to not give money to anybody for anything. So when you're going into their courtroom and you're having a custody hearing and you're having a hearing that is about child support, that government official, that judge, has a docket that has a whole bunch more people just like you. And that judge wants to get rid of you as soon and as quickly as possible. They are not wanting to hear all sides. They don't want to hear stories from your mama about how you were a good kid in the first grade or your teachers and all that. They don't want to know that. They just want to look at how much money do you make? This is what you're going to pay. Because that gets it off of their docket and it gets the responsibility onto somebody else. Now, I will say, if you are a person who has money, and there are, of course, some, let's say, higher profile cases, such as NBA player Blake Griffin. I know that was a controversy a couple of weeks ago, of him being, let's say, made to give a certain amount of money. That, in my mind, was commensurate with the money that he makes, because if you're making $10 million a month, it's not unrealistic to me to have you pay $500,000 a month for your children. I mean, it sounds it all sounds crazy. But, if you have money, this is America. And at the end of the day, if you have money, they're going to look at those nuances more than they would a broke person, or a person who had a child that, they weren't married to the partner that they had the child with. And coming into that, too, we have increase over the last couple of decades, the just number and percentage of people who are having children and are not married. And you don't have the same protections or rights as a parent if you're not married to the person. So, of course, in an ideal world, we would have, like Michael Jackson said, if you can't make the gravy, what was it? If you can't make the gravy, don't make the baby.
Oh, Lord.
So in an ideal world, we would have, partners married who are ready to take on the responsibility of children and childbearing in this world. But we don't live there, right?
No,
some of us still live in Jerry Springer world, and Jerry got canceled.
Well, JP, and you brought out some great points. And in the act of, I was being silly with Bill Clinton, but it was Bill Clinton introduced that Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act in '96 to restructure the welfare system. But I struggle with this, and let me just tell you why I struggle with it. I struggle with it because I see a lot of gentlemen who have been working their butts off to take care of their kids. They're working 2 and 3 jobs, and the more money that they're bringing in, the more money the courts are expecting them to pay out. And it's just not fair. I don't think it's fair. And maybe most women say, well, you don't have kids, so you don't understand. I don't think I need to have kids to understand. What I understand is this. I understand that child support serves a similar purpose as if you have an individual who receives SSI because they are unable to work, whether it's through the physical or mental capacity, and they need room, board, clothing, and the necessities, essentials for life, and they need, some, recreation and stuff like that. Now, I know that those individuals generally have a guardian, and that guardian is monitored as to what they spend and what they use. But why is it that, and I'm sorry, I got to pick on the moms, why is it that single mothers have a problem when people start talking about mothers being monitored and being, having some caps put on what they can use?
May I?
Please, I was waiting, please.
And I'm just talking to my situation, because it's hard to gauge. For me, because I was working most of the time when he got child support, I was working, and so let's say, and I'm going to be real here, working. Let's say that the child support check hit my bank account because I'm out, out of state. It direct deposits right 2 minutes before before my paycheck hits the account. So now I got to pay off everything. If I want to get my hair done and it hits before that, okay, one can say, well, see, you're using it wrong. No, I'm not using it wrong because my paycheck's coming in. But and that's just a example. But what happens is, and I know, and I'm Lily, I'm not saying, sometimes you need to, and I'm sure you understand, kids go, and I said this before, they go through, stuff happens almost every week. So stuff needs to get paid. Dentist, doctor bills, school stuff, everything. So that's why you can't monitor to it, because anything can come up. If I go and buy groceries and I buy a cheesecake, and they're like, oh, well, that's unnecessary. You don't need to buy a cheesecake. But the next day, my son needs this. Yeah, I'm going to need that. And then, with my son, his foot grows. I think this is men's foot. They grow every month. So now I'm buying new sneakers because he's growing out his sneakers every few months. So it's hard to gauge. Whereas another child may not need that. Another child my son's age may not need that. So if somebody says to me, and I think my son's father tried them, I want to see everything they're paying. And the court at, where we used to live was like, yeah, no, we're not doing that. That's why, because it's very, very hard to gauge. Now, and so that's why, for me, I'm like, well, I'm not going to sit here and do all this because too much stuff comes in. But, go ahead.
Well, no, what I was going to say is that I know within my heart your situation is different. And I think that what I'm more thinking about is Jenny from the block and Lakeisha with the 4 or 5 different baby daddies. And I'm just being real. Like, and guys, this is not to offend anybody, but it's just being real. Because one thing that MBG is here for, we are here to strengthen intracultural communication. And what intracultural communication means is within our community. And the reality is that we are doing some stupid, ignorant, foolish things that our forefathers wouldn't have done. My grandmother, my dad's mom, it was like 20 of them, right? They didn't have welfare back then, but you know what they did have? They had grandma, they had great aunt, they had big mama, they had next door neighbor. And this is what I'm saying. Everything now is so much about money. There's a lot of men, they're so frustrated from dealing with the mothers, they don't want to have to deal with the kids in visitation. And I'm not saying that it's okay, but what I'm saying is, at what point do we step back and say, you know what, just because it's a mother doesn't mean that it's right.
Oh, I see. I see what you're saying.
And the second thing I want to say, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. I definitely see where there are some mothers, but like you just said, that take advantage of it, and and in those cases they need to be monitored. Now, yeah, I get that point, definitely.
And the second thing I want to say is, you talked about the child support hitting your account. My argument would be, well, why doesn't that child have their own account? You see what I'm saying? And I guess for me, when I look at it, and because I've been in the system for so long and I've been watching these things happen, I sincerely feel like we have to come up with some kind of boundaries so that people understand that there are ways to make this thing right. And a child can have an account, and your name can be on that account, but that account needs to be in that child's name. And I know it can be done because my father retired when I was in the 1st grade, and my brother got a Social Security check, and I got a Social Security check. And that Social Security check did not go in my mama's account. That Social Security check went in Lily Mae's account, and Betty and Bo had access, and Linwood's account. So what I'm saying is that money should be separate. Now, if the money is separate, guess what? It won't be hard to track.
Oh, I see. Okay. And that's definitely a solution that that should be looked at. You know, of course, my son, like I said, is a senior in high school, and okay, if they're starting in high school, if that was what was, well, my situation is different because it stopped paying. He stopped paying before that, but yeah, starting in high school, yeah, it's a mess. But anyway, starting in high school, yeah, they should get that in their own account. Sure, I would agree with that. You know, it's definitely and that's definitely one option. It's very hard because at one end you have you know, what's her name from with 4 or 5 kids, and it's obvious is you know. Meanwhile, you do have other single mothers that are just making it work, doing what they have to do. You know, so it's very hard. Like you. Yeah, and then you got in the middle, and then you got this. Like someone could say to me, "Oh, well, Kendall, you spent that money to get your hair done." I said, "No, technically I didn't, because my check hit right afterwards."
Yeah.
So if my son needed something, it was there. But so there's a lot of blended issues going on, and I believe and I don't want to mispronounce your name, but the gentleman said it as well. There's a lot of blended, and you don't know. But like you just said, that's definitely an option that should be looked at.
Very much so. Very much.
Why not talk like an EBT card? You know, put it on a debit card like EBT. The reason they went to EBT,
it is on a debit card.
For the first place, is that it's harder to be fraudulent. Like, you know, back in the day, I used to be able to go and buy food stamps 33 cents on the dollar, right? They came in with the EBT card. Now, if I'm gonna do that for my own groceries, I gotta go with the person. I ain't got time for that.
But you know what's interesting about that? Now, they had to fix the EBT cards where they had to update the Cash App so that people would stop linking their EBT cards to Cash App and posting their Cash Apps on Facebook and getting people to send money.
You got to stay current with technology, you know, because
you know feel what I'm saying?
The Russians probably hacking the EBT cards anyway.
The Russians created child support enforcement. So you know what? And we're gonna jump out there and we're gonna do some final thoughts, because I think my final thoughts are gonna make some people mad. So I'm gonna wait. But Kendall, do you have any final thoughts for my listeners? Because guess what? We're not done with this. Oh, next week we coming back with the fire, because dads, we got your back.
Sure. My final thought is to, like it was said before, research before making big moves as far as going to court. Just so you know, so everybody knows, number one. Number two, you know, like this was just like we were just talking, like Lily was saying, you have to start with solutions and legitimate solutions that will help out everybody. You know, just like that, like a bank account or perhaps a debit card, because I know that discussion came out. But then after that, do the pros and cons and what can happen there. Someone on Cash App doing that, or what happens when money runs out because of an emergency situation for the child, what happens then. So definitely start with a solution to this and you know, really take a look and understand it, because like everyone says, every situation is different, but we definitely do have to have like something solid as far as getting this system better.
Wow, sounds great. JP, what's up?
You know what? If you're supposed to pay child support, pay your damn child support. That's all I got to say.
Oh, wow. AmberJ, what you got for us?
I agree with everything that's been said. Yeah, definitely pros and cons. And if you're, you know, an advocate of some sort, you know, push the law, you know, challenge the law. Just be like, you know, what other ways can we do to make this thing more, to make it easier?
instead of breaking pockets and things like that. I mean, sometimes people are going to be ignorant and you can't help that, but, try to push for a different law and take it all the way to the top. It was like, cause again, like as always, it's coming from the top down, but you can always go from the bottom up. So just because it's coming from the top down, from people who probably ain't paying child support for real, doesn't mean that it can't be changed. Different set of eyes see different things. So if it's coming from the top down and you don't agree with what's going on, then just challenge it from the bottom up so it can change from the top and be redirected out. And always remember each state is different as well, but always challenge it. If you don't agree, always challenge it, and you may be saving thousands of dollars and somebody else from misery in the end.
I know that's right. My 50 just gave it to y'all. All right.
That was much more eloquent than my response.
Well, guess what? Well, I'm about to piss them all off.
See, that's why you close it out.
I'm about to piss them all off, and I really don't care. This is all I have to say. Why are you going to court for child support? Why don't you take some of that child support money and invest in Gerber life insurance and stop resorting to GoFundMe? Number 2, this is for the courts. Courts, why don't you mandate that the parent that's getting the child support purchase life insurance? How about that for a mandate? All right, once again, guys, y'all heard from Sippin' Tea with MBG. I'm your girl, Lily Mae. You got AmberJ.
And I'm AmberJ.
And you got JP, the Westside Connection. And we definitely have Miss Kendall on tonight. Well, guys, this episode is called Child Support. You mad or nah? And guess what? It's not over. We'll be back next week. And we definitely want to shout out the single dads out there holding it down. And not even custodial single dads. We want to shout out the non-custodial single dads. And there's one that I really want to shout out, and that's Sean Hextall. I want to shout out this guy because a couple of months ago, and AmberJ, I know you probably remember this, he went through hell with a child support case in Chesterfield County. And so definitely want to shout him out, being a non-custodial single father who definitely holds it down and does what he's supposed to do. But once again, you've heard from Sippin' Tea with MBG every Saturday at 12 noon right here on Spreaker. I'm your girl, Lily Mae, and
as always, MBG listens.
And then we speak. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
For the first time in years, got my feet across the border from a land of tears. Ain't no way I'm going back under. Got my eyes in the wild blue yonder. Will lies beyond the horizon? Let's go find out. Feeling free, free to live my life, free to roll the dice, free to let the ride. I'm gonna feel free to go wherever I choose, free to stay or just to lose, free to sing, free to dance. Singing my